Hello, and welcome to the Thinking Elixir podcast, where we cover the news of the community and learn from each other. My name is Mark Erickson.
And I'm David Bernheisel.
Let's jump into the news. First up, there's a new library called Vault that we wanted to highlight. So, recently we've been talking about Phoenix Scopes with the most recent Phoenix 1.8. And Scopes is this thing that bundles up all of the context around who the current user is, any other information you have. That could be multi-tenancy information. It could be account that it's tied to, or if you're masquerading as another user, impersonation, all that kind of stuff can be bundled up in this context. And that scope is passed down through functions in the context so that you can have access to it when you need to. Well, Vault takes a different approach to this. It's kind of like the new Phoenix Scopes idea, but it's wrapping it all up into the process dictionary. Because of that, you're not passing the scope context through to each of these function calls that are going to be calling it. That just means the context is available to every function that's part of that process. And if you're talking about something like a absinthe GraphQL call, everything that's happening in that call, unless you're spinning off separate tasks, like asynchronous tasks or something, everything in that call has the same context of that current user and all the other information that you want. So the GitHub project describes Vault as a lightweight Elixir library for immutable data storage within a process subtree. That's a key, right? Immutable. You shouldn't be modifying like the current user information and putting that back into the process dictionary. You're not supposed to do that. The GitHub project continues and says, due to Elixir's actor model nature, it's common for a process to have global context that is valid for every function call inside of the process and its children. For example, this context can include a user when processing a user's request, tenant and multi-tenant applications, rate limiting buckets and quotas, cache namespaces, APIs or client versions, and any other kind of stuff you might think that you would want to store and have available. I know people are going to have different takes on this, right? You may have some very strong or specific feelings about the use of the process dictionary in this way. So that may influence if you're in favor of this or not. I am currently a little mixed. So I work on a project and it is multi-tenancy. I came into this project and they're already using the library Triplex. And Triplex is doing that idea of once we figure out who the host is, for the tenant, and because maybe if you're doing tenancy through Postgres database schemas, where you're completely separating the schemas in a single database server, if you're doing it that way, then Triplex puts into the process dictionary, this is the host you resolve to, so all the queries will be run in that context. So there is certainly precedence for this. Right. But it just kind of becomes a question of how much stuff is okay to put in there.
Well, it's going to be somewhere, right? So if you think about like Phoenix Live View, there's a process there with a dictionary of state. We've just wrapped it up into assigns, right? It's not so related to Phoenix Scopes, but I think maybe I'm forcing it to be. But
I think conceptually it lines up.
Yeah, like the way that I would use it, I think would be similar to Phoenix Scopes, right? So you build your scope at the beginning of the requests. Phoenix Scopes are obviously, web oriented. Vault is not, it doesn't care. But when you get your requests, you build your scope. And then the problem is the property drilling at that point, right? And that's where Vault is trying to help here. Mm-hmm. What's a way that you can avoid property drilling is to not property drill. Just put it in the dictionary and then yank it back out when you need it. That's one way that you could do it, right? So like what you would use Phoenix Scopes for is, plug requests are typically, for that one process, and then they go away. Sometimes these processes can be reused though, especially when you're in the bandits world. I think processes can be reused. So there's some weirdness there. But yeah, like the process dictionary is a good place, I think, to put in that like current context kind of stuff. The same thing that Phoenix Scope is trying to do. But the difference is that you don't have to pass that down explicitly from function to function to function. Yeah. One thing that Vault is doing here, though, it is leveraging the process tree. So it is process aware at least. So if that key is not in that current process, it'll go see who the caller was and then go look there for that. So it's, for what it's worth, Ectorepo does the same thing. There's a function like get dynamic repo. It's got some process dictionary trickery in there, right? Yeah, I try to avoid the process dictionary as much as I can, but the API here is really clean. It's a really small library. There's really not much going on here. It's just a good little abstraction around getting and putting stuff into your process dictionary. The purpose is to help with property drilling, which I agree is can get kind of problematic. Yeah, there's probably other ways you could handle that as well. Not that using the process dictionary is an evil thing. You can certainly do it for stuff. There's nothing wrong with that.
I just know that in general, I consider the idea of global mutable state is evil, and it will cause you so many problems as a developer, right? So that's what you're wanting to avoid, is global mutable state. And when you're talking about the process dictionary, it can be that. And you could just say, I'm going to start a counter and be updating that to the process dictionary. Every iteration of your function is going to do something different based on the number, right? And like that becomes wacky and evil, like in terms of your coworkers are going to hate you. But, so it comes down to how are you using it? Vault is saying, hey, this is really supposed to be immutable, right? And maybe there's some API guarantees, kind of protections to say, it gets set and there is no ability to reset once it's set, something like that.
Yeah.
That's where it gets really fuzzy, right? And really iffy. So it just becomes a question of how much setup and how much data do you want to put in that process tree? Because to the process, it is global for all execution that it's happening. What I don't like about it is potentially that I call a function and there's nothing in the call signature about what it's actually accessing. So it's just, I have to know now that this function is accessing process dictionary stuff, like that current user is being passed in and just made available. So testing is different. You're not talking about having pure tests where you have pure input and pure output. It's not deterministic that way because whatever's set in the state will change it. It gets a little wishy-washy, and I think it could be used responsibly. I do agree. I think it could be responsibly used, but I don't know how I feel personally about using it.
Well, I think that's what Vault's trying to do is to make it responsible. Right? Its first principle is to be immutable, so you don't run into those mutation kind of issues. But yeah, like using the pattern of like ets, even ets has like has a handler though, right? So you pass around that handler. And the handler could be defaulted to like just a module name, but that module name is definitely global. So you set up protections when you create that ets table that it can only be written to by this process.
Yep.
Right. So it's very similar. It's just that this is an ets. This is the process dictionary, which is much easier. You just process info on me. And that so it's simpler. I don't know. All right. Well, that's Vault. By the way, the author of this is Dima. Dima is also creator of another good library called Taurus, which is providing a good API around full text search in databases. So Dima's good people definitely know the need for something like Vault, because at least the problem of property drilling is a hard one to solve. And so Vault is, I don't know, I think that's a good way to solve it. We shouldn't be afraid of the process dictionary. And so Vault is putting some good guardrails around the immutability of the data that you put in there. And then avoiding the foot guns of forgetting that processes can be spawned and still might need that same data. Well, hey, moving on. Vault's a good library. Check it out. Very small, so you're not really adding a whole lot if you think that API looks pretty cool to help you out with some prop drilling.
Yep. This episode is sponsored by Paraxial.io, the only security platform with true Elixir support. I sat down with founder Michael Lubis to ask some questions about how Elixir developers should think about security. Welcome back, Michael.
Thank you.
For this week's question, I'm curious, what are the biggest security risks that most developers don't know about?
I would say most developers aren't aware of what the really bad vulnerabilities are. So if you get a pen test report and it says, your content security policy, and there's an Atom denial of service that gets a lot of attention in Elixir, honestly, that's not a really big deal. If you see remote code execution, SQL injection, server-side request forgery, directory traversal that leads to remote code execute, those are the ones that are really bad, because a bad guy can use those vulnerabilities to get the equivalent of production SSH access to your server, or even access to your cloud environment. So being aware of the common web application vulnerabilities, how to defend against them. This is a feature that I've gotten very good feedback on from Praxeal.io customers, where after a scan, it will prioritize and explain and say, hey, here's a low priority finding versus, hey, here's a really critical finding. Here's what the bad code looks like. Here's what the good code, secure code looks like, and how you fix it in your work to prevent that incident.
Be sure to reach out to Michael at Praxeal.io to get personalized security feedback for your projects and your business. That's at Praxeal.io.
Next up, OTP 28.1 was released. So by itself, I'm not sure this release is very notable just on its own, but it is notable for Elixir. Elixir has been, I'm not going to say it correctly, but I'll put it this way, that Elixir's been holding out on Elixir 1.19 fully releasing because of it was waiting on OTP 28.1. So yesterday was the day that OTP 28.1 was released. I'll read out some of the highlights here, but before I do, yeah, Elixir 1.19 is still RC as of today, but I guess that means that our Elixir 1.19 can proceed, to actually release. And we'll talk about what the holdup was. So the first highlight, which is the holdup in the 28.1 release, is that they added support for the module RE as in regex, for export and import of compiled regular expressions in order to safely move them between Erlang node instances. That was one of the reasons why Elixir 1.19 was held up. They were waiting on that. We do that, and it's fairly common to put regexes into like module attributes. That's kind of the thing there. So we need to be able to share those sometimes when we're doing RPC calls between nodes. Another highlight is the rudimentary DNS resolver. I wonder why they call it rudimentary. Anyway, the rudimentary DNS resolver inet res, as in resolve, has acquired 3 new functions: get by host name, get by name, and get host by address, ADDR, that all take an option list argument. The option list can be used to override the kernel application's resolver options when calling the inet res functions directly. Yeah, if you're doing any kind of networking things, OTP 28.1, DNS resolving things, rather, that's going to be, I think, pretty helpful. I think I may have actually come into a need for this at some point, so it's kind of neat. And then one more about SSL and keys, and also the Erlang SSL and public key applications now support ML-DSA. ML-DSA, which is a new algorithm to protect against quantum computers. We're here, people. The future is here. We got quantum computers attacking us. I'm just kidding. You can, well, maybe. Am I? You can find out more info at a link that we have to nist.gov that talks a little bit more about that algorithm. What is that algorithm? ML-DSA. ML is Module Lattice Based Digital Signature Standard. It is specifically designed, for quantum computers, right? So just needs to be, we need more protections. Quantum computers can pretty characteristically, that's like a thing. Like the thing that I know about quantum computers so far is that they can break encryption much easier than we might be used to. And so this is a different algorithm that can be used now for SSL connections. And by SSL, this is common for like SSH connections. When you're signing up for GitHub, they always ask, you got a new computer, you always got to get an SSH, key, right? A long time ago, you would have seen some simpler ones, RSA kind of keys. Now you see like ED10 something or another algorithm. I forget what it is. Now maybe we're going to move forward with something like ML-DSA as your standard kind of like default SSH key. So that's pretty much it there. The TLS kind of related is in that same realm, is that the TLS server will now fail early for supplied PEM file issues, such as the file not being there, which seems helpful.
Let me know early.
Yeah. Some quantum computer updates for Erlang and some regex goodness and some DNS resolver goodness, all in OTP 28.1.
And next up, Tidewave Teams was released, and Tidewave also now supports to-dos. First on to-dos, if you've used like Claude Code, Cursor AI, those types of things, if you say, this is what I want to do, the AI, the LLM, will generate its own little set of to-dos. then it will check those off as it goes. It's just a way of keeping it on track, like helping it to define small tasks that can be performed and then come back and then remember what it's supposed to be doing next. Much like, I might write on a yellow sticky note, like, oh, this is the things I need to do. It's the same kind of idea. So Tidewave now supports that. That's very cool. Jose shared that on X, and we have got a link to that where he's got like a screenshot, and you can see what that looks like, which is pretty much what you'd expect. And then the other part is that Tidewave Teams has now been released. And what Tidewave Teams is they introduced the Tidewave Team Plan, and it provides a central place to manage billing and configuration. So currently it is in beta, and this plan offers adopters special pricing and the opportunity to shape their roadmap if you're getting involved early. If you're wanting to use that for your whole team, that is obviously the preferable way of doing it rather than having multiple people either, getting reimbursed and having their own subscriptions. So being able to manage a subscription for a whole team of users, pretty cool.
All right, next up, a new Ash framework related library was released. It's called AshTypescript. There's a lot in this packed into the name. What does this mean? AshTypescript. Okay, well, Ash, got that. And then TypeScript. Well, TypeScript's a lot. What is TypeScript? Well, just the whole language. Is it the whole language? What is this? So it is automatic TypeScript type generation for Ash resources and actions. I think it's selling itself short with that little quote because it's not just types it's doing here. All right, so we'll keep on going. It says automatic TypeScript type generation, generate type-safe TypeScript clients. There it is. Directly from your Elixir Ash resources, ensuring end-to-end type safety between your backend and your front end. Never write API types manually again. Again, it's really focusing on these types. And maybe I should be more amazed by that. So there was a related Ash TypeScript demo project. It's created by Christian Alexander. It's not a project official demo, but it is pretty cool. So we got a link to that demo and a tweet where we illustrate, using this. Here's what this kind of does. It includes a TypeScript written bridge between the server and the front end and performing actions on those resources as well. Before we even get there, I've got all my Ash resources defined. I've got it all typed, and I've got actions I can perform on those resources. Got it. I can totally imagine a mix ash dot, TypeScript gen or whatever command that's going to read all my resources and then output a bunch of TypeScript types. That by itself would be amazing, and then done, right? Mm-hmm. Then you've got your types, you put it into your usual front end bundlers, and now you've got type safety on the front end ensured with your compiler, at least. Not total type safety because that's TypeScript. Can't be totally safe. It's gradual typing. It's flawed. I'll end it there. But at least it's better, right? Okay, so beyond that, now there's this TypeScript bridge. I'm calling it a bridge. They're not calling it a bridge. It is also the client between the front ends and the back end. Not only just the client, but like the client over HTTP, normal fetching and, getting and posting and whatever, right? Across your resources actions. So if your actions are like get, list, and do, or delete and stuff, well, now you're going to have like those in TypeScript. And so in your front end code, you can call these generated resource actions, in TypeScript, and they'll make that appropriate request and push that over HTTP, as a request to your backend, which would just support it. Okay, not only HTTP, say that you don't want HTTP. HTTP is old news. You want WebSockets. Well, they got you covered there too. So they got it covered over Phoenix channels. So if you already got channels going on, then you can just push a message live view style, I guess, and not diffed. I don't know, maybe bad comparison, but over the WebSocket at least, push that command over the WebSocket to do those same actions against your resources. This is really neat. That's really cool. Not only just plain TypeScript, but they also have support for Zod, which is pretty popular for asserting shapes, in between APIs. So that's pretty cool. Channel-based validation. There's type-safe filtering, so you can, if you're a list to-dos, resource or list to-dos action, you can pass like all of the fields that you want back and all of the filters that you want to do on that. So you can put in your filter and status equals ongoing and priority in high or urgent or something, right? Like all that's taken care of you for you. All right, I need to start taking Ash a little bit more seriously, because the number of times I've had to write that kind of stuff is too high. All right, so that'll round it out. So that's AshTypescript. That's pretty incredible. I like that library. It needs a more impressive name. Ash front end. I get Ash all in Ash redone in TypeScript or something. I don't know. There needs to be more in that.
So one of the things I remember Zach Daniel talking about, the real powers of Ash, is when you define the resources that you can now extrapolate off of that, all these other things. And so that's where you get this API kind of stuff coming in. You're going to get a great CRUD interface for that. And, probably all the other special functions that you're defining as part of that resource. So yeah, I view that as like further evidence of what he's been claiming all along. So yeah, cool to see that TypeScript. And next up, a little anecdotal teaser by Derek Cran was shared about Elixir 1.19 RC0. And this is just something worth passing along. We talked about OTP 28.1, that was hold up for the final release of Elixir 1.19. Well, when Elixir 1.19 officially drops and that release is cut, one of the things that it is going to do is has a new environment variable that you can set to define how many cores Mix should use when compiling deps. So this doesn't impact compiling your regular application, just for iterative compiles. That's already kind of as optimized as it can be, because you have dependencies of this module has to be compiled first, so then this one comes next. But with deps, they're pretty much all independent, right? Like the Markdown library has nothing to do with JSON, and they're just very different stuff. And so Derek shared his little experience. He says, dependency compilation is pinning all 24 cores of my machine and is down from 143 seconds to 55 seconds. And that's with no other changes other than going to 1.19 and setting this little environment variable. So Zach Daniel had shared previously on Blue Sky what this little line looks like that you can put in your ENV file. Zach Daniel shared the Mac version of it because it's using specific Mac commands to get the how many physical CPUs do I have. So I've included the Linux version, which is just getting the same information. So what you're doing is you're taking how many physical CPUs do I have, divide that by 2, and that's how many partitions I want to use for my deps compilation. So yeah, you just drop that into your .env file and you're going to get a speed up on your deps when you get Elixir 1.19.
Yeah, it's pretty nifty. I did that. I have that in my little Zush local file. By the way, I'd recommend having a local file. You can't commit everything, to your Zush RC and have it totally be portable, right? I don't have the same number of cores on my laptop as I do on my other stuff. So a Zush local is something that is not committed. It just hangs out on your machine. So it's kind of machine specific. And this is definitely machine specific. And so instead of every time you open up a Zush session, having it go query, how many cores do I have? That's never going to change. Just figure out what that value is with these nice little scripts that you guys have collected here. And then just put that in. Just put it in directly, So put that into your Zush local and then have your Zush RC just look for that. And if that file exists, then also source it. And there you go. You got that set up. Really easy to forget. I wonder what the default is. I guess is the default to do nothing. So like
single core? I don't know.
Yeah. Do we have to put are they going to maybe 1.19.0 is going to be just no change, but .1 they're gonna adjust the default partition to do this for you. I don't know. We'll see.
Yep.
All right. So we had talked a little bit about Rebar 3 in the past, specifically about a Kickstarter that's coming up. Well, at the time of this recording, it's almost done. By the time you, dear listener, hear this, it will be done. So we'll figure out what the results are at that point. We've been talking about it, and we've been a little incorrect about some of the things. So we want to correct some of it. And thanks to Pierre Stringsinger for reaching out and giving us the correction here. So here's the correction. We've been implying that Rebar 3 has no lock files. That's not entirely correct. It does have lock files, but not when you're talking about Rebar 3 plugins, and plugins don't have the log files. And so that's the clarification we needed to express here. Because yeah, I didn't know that. I thought it was just all 3 bar 3. I'm like, that's kind of stinky. But well, if it's just plugins, then maybe that's not so bad, but that still has a good effect. We still need log files, universally with any dependency management with Erlang projects, Beam projects, and all.
And the goal of, as I recall, from getting those version files, and now it makes more sense with the plugins, is to have reproducible builds that are reliable, that you can say, yes, this is going to give me the same output.
Right. Yeah. So the end results is still, the goal is still the same. We're looking for reproducible, reliable builds here. Can't do that without log files at all levels. And so this is going to add it to the Rebar 3 plugins. Rebar 3 or Rebar 4? I don't know, but all right. So a little update on that Kickstarter project then, now that we got the correction out of the way. So at the time of this recording, I'm looking at right now, is they have converted the over 12,000 euros pledged at this moment, which is about $14,000 US dollars. So what does that mean? So 12,000 euros. Let me scroll down. So their goal is just almost 9,000 euros. So goal met, right? Stretch goal 1 was 11.4 thousand euros. So they have met stretch goal 1, which includes these log files that we're talking about, the plugin log files, including streamlining support for current OTP versions and developing a robust versioning approach that aligns with the OTP's team's deprecation practices. At the time of this recording, there is 26 hours to go. And the next stretch goal is dependency management and OTP integration, which is reviewing dependencies for a more streamlined maintenance and coordinating with the OTP team to standardize, including Rebar 3 in the OTP distribution. So that way it's just not a separately treated piece of software that just always tags along with OTP. Just ship it with OTP. I think that's the idea. That target is just a little over 15,000 euros. So they are about 3,000 euros away from that at the time of recording. So when you listen to this podcast, we can go check it out and see what the result is, see what snuck in there in the final days worth of funding. So anyway, congrats to the team there for getting funded at all, and then also having a bit of success to get one of your stretch goals as well. You can follow the links in our show notes to get that final tally. I'm sure you'll be able to find it too. We'll see how it goes. It's exciting.
Yep. And next up, there's a Goatmire conference report by Lars Wikman. If you recall, Lars Wikman was the organizer of the event. So he's the one who's written up how it went. So his report, because of his insight, gives more behind the scenes context about setting up the event, running the event, and how the event was successful. So from what we understand, the conference was recorded, but currently there's no way to see that. And we don't have any insight as to when that's going to be released. We'll have to wait and see. But what you can see right now on Lars's report is some great photography of the event. Because what's interesting is, like, Lars was describing in his write-up what they were kind of making and what they were setting out to do. And they really wanted to be more about storytelling and more depth to it. Looks like some of the people really went all in on that. In the pictures, you'll see a lot of wonderful costumes and storytelling happening. And Lars is in multiple unique outfits with some snazzy jackets and everything. Like, he's just having a lot of fun with it. But yeah, if you'd like to understand a little bit more about what went on with the event, check out Lars's post, check out the photos. And now it sets up, a little FOMO for if there's a Goatmire 2 in the future.
All right. Well, speaking of conferences, the next one up is ExMex Elixir. ExMex. I really want to say Tex-Mex. Sorry. ExMex Elixir conference has opened the sale of their tickets. We got a link to that. It's this ExMex conference is happening on November 6th and the 7th in downtown Austin, Texas. So another week from the release of this episode, is all the time that you have for their door open price. All right, so you got to get in early to get it cheap. It is a 2-day conference, single tracks, very simple, and the speaker list and the schedules are posted. So if you're curious about what's going to happen there, it's posted. You can find out. So I'll go across some of the speakers here. So they've got Maggie Tate, they got Amos King, we've got Mitchell Handberg, Isaac Yanamoto, Thomas Millar's going to be there, Jason Axelson, a lot of great people there, Barrett and Dennis Beatty. Lots of folks are going to be talking there at ExMex in Austin, Texas. So all very exciting stuff. So ElixirConf US is over. Goatmire is over. We're definite, but we're not over from the conference season. So if you've missed out on any of those, ExMex, especially if you're in that part of the world, ExMex looks like it's going to have a good lineup. So go get your tickets.
Yeah, and as of our recording, it is the week of Elixir meetups that was going down globally, where people are just kind of organizing, hey, let's all hold meetups around during this 1 week. So there's nothing to report on at this moment because they're all happening. What that makes me think of is just there is a lot of cool stuff going on in the Elixir community. It is a growing community. You got the Goatmire, it was successful. More conferences coming up, meetups. So if you want to get involved, just go find your local meetups or conferences. Regional ones are great too, just to see where you can go and get involved in the community. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening. We hope you'll join us next time on Thinking Elixir.